So I suppose you're going to have to start this documentary off somewhere. So where do you start? First off, I want to say I never want to delve that deep into a project again for the sanity, safety and security of my film crew. So let's just talk about it here, and then I never want to relive it.
Now to some worrying news that disorder at English football grounds is up by more than a third this season, according to new police figures.
It is the ugly side of the beautiful game.
I think it's worrying now that we're seeing more younger people being engaged in disorder.
Supporters with a history of violence or involvement in football-related trouble are also being targeted. And the authorities are warning anyone involved in football-related trouble, wherever they are, face the prospect of banning orders.
Well, the one thing I've learned from this experience is that football hooligans are fucking nuts. What is online hooliganism? Well, it's a subsect of hooliganism that was developed in the noughties, and it continues through to the present day. As technology began to grow, so did the police's ability to catch the hooligans on match days. You had things like facial recognition, lifetime bans, and then putting them on tags.
You'd have a scrap down the lane, and 6 months later, on Mother's Day, you get a knock at the door. That's it, you're nicked.
The 70s, 80s and 90s were like the Wild West. It's not like that anymore. For them to act in that manner now is practically impossible.
Back then, you'd have a day out with the lads, have a scrap, and be back in time for tea. Blokes have got too much to lose these days. Most of them are supporting a family, kids, and holding down a job. They can't afford to be slapped with a 2-year prison sentence for swinging a punch.
This meant football firms and hooligans had to adapt. Obviously, they still wanted to kick 7 shades out of each other, but it meant they had to utilise other forms of technology in order to arrange meets. This was primarily done through social media.
It's how the young lads do it these days. The police can't track it. They have no idea when and where they're going to meet.
I think it's given a sense of organisation to what was once a spur-of-the-moment eruption of chaos and violence. And so, yes, I suppose you could say the hooliganism we have today is organised crime.
You listen here, Arsenal Dave 1702 or whatever the fuck your irrelevant name is. I'll be down the Beehive having a pint of numbers because this is North London fucking Derby Day, yeah? So if any of you or your muggy little mates want to hear this and have your fucking skull caved in, pop along and see us, won't you? Oh, and the second thing I want to fucking talk about, you mention my fucking nan's name again or my nan again, you little muggy. I'll be round your house quicker than you fucking know about, and you'll go missing in the boot of my fucking car. Do you understand me, you little fucking...
Yeah, that's always the way, isn't it? People say it's like a family-oriented thing, and they always say there's a choice in the matter, but no, for me, I don't know what it is, but we keep going back. Me and Phil have been best mates since I was 10 and he was 13. You know, that age difference, we've always been more of like a brotherly relationship. He used to say that I was the brains and he was the muscle.
Phil is my nephew, and before we discuss the events that took place, I'd just like to tell him I miss him and I love him and I hope he's happy wherever he is. Like any story, you have to start at a beginning. Unfortunately, this one starts with tragedy. Phil was born without parents. His mother died at childbirth, God rest her soul, and his father disappeared once he heard the news. No one knows where he is or what he's up to. He cut off all forms of contact. Whether it's because he realised he couldn't bring up a child on his own or didn't want one in the first place, who knows? But because of this, Phil was raised solely by his nan. My husband and I offered to adopt Phil, but she wasn't having any of it. So that's what she did. She raised him.
Me and Phil would play football here like every day after school. You know, we'd pretend to be Spurs players and stuff like that. His nan would, without fail, have dinner on the table, 6 o'clock, every night. At the weekend, like, either he would come to mine or I'd go to his nan's. And yeah, I mean, we were inseparable.
My late husband, Phil's uncle, tried his best to be a father figure to Phil. He'd take him to White Hart Lane all the time. Well, I think once he was able to get him a ticket, which was about 5 years of age, then that was it. They were out for hours and weren't back till tea time. His uncle was at fault for creating Phil's obsession with football. He'd run up and down the garden for hours, recreating goals and celebrations. We'd drop him off at his nan's and he'd have to show her the latest celebration that his uncle had taught him. I think the Jurgen Klinsmann was one of his favourite. His uncle wasn't going to let him support anyone else other than Spurs.
I mean, it changed a bit as we got older and that age gap started to show. Like, you know, I was 13 and I still wanted to play football and use hoodies as goalposts, and he was down the pub drinking Strongbow Blackcurrant, trying to chat out birds and failing miserably. But the one thing we always had was Spurs, because we both had season tickets and we would see each other every weekend regardless of anything. Phil got into hooliganism at the age of 16. Yeah, I remember it vividly. It was West Ham at home and we were walking down Tottenham High Road. And the away fans, they queue to get into the stadium on the corner of Park Lane by the Megastore, because it's a one-in, one-way out system. And that's the thing about the Tottenham area, and it still is the thing. There's loads of places like that where home and away fans can basically be right on top of each other. So we're approaching these West Ham fans and we can hear shouting and singing, you know, fairly normal. Then bottles start flying through the air and like the police horses are agitated, one nearly tramples me, but Phil is straight in amongst it, shouting, swearing, like a man possessed. And I mean, the funny thing was, it was all handbags. Like none of them could reach each other, nothing happened, but from that moment on, Phil was hooked. Then began Phil's obsession with football hooligan culture. The music, the fashion, trainers, tracksuit tops, roll necks, then all the brands, Stone Island, CP, Sergio, Fila. He spent so much money on that stuff. To be honest, I thought he looked a bit stupid sometimes, but you know, he thought he was the coolest geezer in Tottenham.
We get the black on, we like to keep it all matching, keep it smart, you see? Bit of a uniform really for us boys. Another Sergio there, another one of the collection. It's a shame because they all get ruined when you have a good tear up. Smart, trim, top button all the way up, lads. That's the look you're going for, yeah?
Have you got a favourite?
Personally, I'd say the jacket I've got on at the minute, mate. It's one of my favourites. Smart, bright, stick out. It's all about standing out from the rest, innit?
Phil was awful with money. It would just burn a hole in his pocket, spending it on bloody booze and clothing. His nan used to worry sick that he was overspending and would get into debt. I was always on the lookout for job opportunities for him. I used to say he leads a lavish lifestyle that he can't support unless he's got a good job behind him. So I took it as my task to try and find him any job opportunities.
You see, the thing with Phil was he couldn't just stop at the fashion and the music. He couldn't just go to the game, watch the football, have a few beers with his mates in the pub and then go home. He wanted to be involved in the actual fighting, the violent side of it. I never partook in any of this, you know, I thought it was stupid. And, you know, I still love the club, I go when I can, but that side of it, it's just not for me. And he pissed me off, you know, when he tried to get into Tottenham's firm at the time. And, you know, we would go to games and he would leave me at half time to try and meet up with them. And I'd have to get the train home on my own.
I think a lot of the young men embrace the subculture. They'll wear the Stone Island and listen to the music. But for Phil, he just had something in his mind. He just had to take it that much further than everyone else.
I wasn't scared to call him out if I thought he was being an idiot. You know, he played the hard man, but we're mates, he's not going to do anything to me. He would make these videos where he would call out other firms, and he would honestly sit in his room, set up his phone on an ironing board and shout down the camera for 10 minutes.
Listen here, you little mugs. We've got 23 lads ready to go for tomorrow and we'll be mob-handed. So if any of you lot want it, you'll be getting a text an hour before with the location. And be sure to turn up because we'll be there in fucking numbers and be on our A game. And if any of you lot want it personally with me, you'll be going fucking missing and be on the 9 o'clock news by the next morning, you little muggy pricks.
I don't think he ever actually got in a proper fight, but I guess it made him feel part of something. It's funny though, because him setting up his phone on that ironing board was actually the start of something very special.
Phil was constantly in and out of jobs. It was a real issue of conformity. He just didn't like being told what to do. Ever since he was at school, I can't count the amount of times my husband and I used to have to go up to the school, talk to the teachers to get him out of trouble. As I said, he was out of work and I was always on the lookout for potential jobs. I got a call from an old friend. He was an independent filmmaker.
Well, I was initially casting for a documentary about a socially realistic portrayal of football fans in the UK. It wasn't meant to be about hooliganism at all. I knew that Sally's family were big on football, so I got in touch with her and she put me in touch with her nephew. And that's how I met Phil.
Yeah, I was sceptical about it at the time. I told him to think about it and weigh up his options. He wouldn't listen. He was buzzing. I've never seen a bloke so excited. And looking back at it now, obviously I wish I'd have made him think twice about it, but how could I not support him at the time? My best mate had the opportunity to be in a documentary. It was pretty exciting stuff.
Well, it quickly became apparent that Phil wanted to make the show about him and hooliganism, and I didn't have a problem with that. I could see the direction the show would go in, and in truth, it was probably a better idea than the original documentary.
We went for a beer the night before the shoot started, and he wasn't nervous at all. And he actually ended up getting absolutely shit-faced. So, a little known fact is, on the first episode of Diary of a Football Hooligan, Phil was, in fact, hungover.
God, yeah. I'll never forget that one.
See, football's football, and when I'm with that's like my other family when I'm with my lads. But when I'm at home, that's my home time, you see, and we keep that completely separate.
Phil,
No.
I've done your washing, and it's all clean, and I've ironed your favourite shirt.
For filming it.
But I've made a cup of tea as well.
Cup of tea?
Yeah.
2 sugars?
Yeah, just as you like.
You're a darling. Yeah, go on.
Enjoy.
Well, it quickly became apparent that he had this hilarious and authentic relationship with his nan. And she was just fantastic. And once we met her, we knew straight away we had something special.
Yes, I think it's about time. I mean, he'll be 27, I think, this year. Yeah, 27. And I wouldn't mind some great-grandchildren. But I can't see it at the moment, the way he's acting. And that, I mean, if he is a football hooligan, who's going to take him on? You know, who wants to admit that their fella's a football hooligan? A nice girl. And I only want him to have a nice girl. I don't want him to have one that's not a nice girl.
Yeah, Phil would definitely play up to the cameras. He gave them all the sound bites they wanted.
Tottenham has been in my family for years, mate. Born and bred. Sex, drugs, booze, nothing compares to having a tear up with the lads.
I was actually quite shocked that we found someone so willing to participate. I mean, usually with documentary filmmaking, you have to ease the answers out of the participant because it's a very alien process for people being in front of a camera for most people. But with Phil, he was a natural. In fact, he was probably more comfortable when the camera was on than when it was off.
She's not just my nan, she's a best friend, and sometimes I want to throw the stone on her and bring her to the footy with me, you know?
I think, and then you worry about him, you know, when he goes out and you look at the clock and you think, oh, he should be back by now, you know, where is he and what's he doing? It's not clever to get yourself a bad name. You know, I don't know, some young men think it is, but I keep telling them it isn't. Could I ask you before you get started to put that other lot in the tumble dryer?
You want another bit in the tumble dryer?
Yeah, I've got the other lot out.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a struggle.
Told you to wait till I got back, didn't I?
Yeah, I know you did, love. Well, that's nice. Who's that for?
Don't you mind about that.
No, I won't.
You ain't been snooping, have you?
I haven't been snooping anywhere.
Are you deaf, son? Come on.
I suppose there was a lot of anger built up towards his dad. He always said to me, if he saw him out and about, he would beat the shit out of him. You know, it was him and his nan against the world, and he wouldn't have it any other way.
Phil, come and take this washing off me.
What?
Come and take this washing off me, Phil? It's getting heavy.
What's going on about? The chair will take the weight, won't it? Give it here.
Off my knees. When you're having yours later.
Yeah. I'm going to pop down the pub for a few Nelsons first. There you go. Right.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Well, this looks alright.
It looks alright, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm not sure him not having his mum and dad around ever affected him because he never really knew them, but if there was one thing that did affect him as a child, it would be the loss of his uncle.
If I could even be half the fella that he was, then I'd be successful, because what he was about, his family attributes and looking after people that were close, and I think that's why it was drilled into me at such a young age that you look after your own first and nothing else matters.
Our family has been through tragedy time and time again. Phil's uncle, my husband, was killed in a violent attack in relation to football violence.
West Ham versus Tottenham 1998. You see, this is what I'll never understand. I mean, I don't understand Phil's obsession with football hooliganism and violence, but this thing took someone directly from you who you loved. Why would you embrace it so much?
He was a good bloke. I knew him from back in the day, round the pubs in Tottenham. The Beehive, Bill Nicholson, Two Brewers. He was one of the faces. All he wanted to do was take his nephew to the game every week. Where's the harm in that?
That's one of the first cases I ever worked on. One of the most infamous events of the 90s regarding football violence. The case went down as an accident. Phil's uncle got trampled by a mob of people. CCTV technology was sadly lacking at the time, so it was very difficult to specifically identify anyone or if it was done on purpose.
It was West Ham away, a naughty fixture. Tensions were high between the two firms because we ran them out of Tottenham a few months before.
The thing is with football hooligans, they never see it as an accident. To them, it's always personal. Phil's family were just supposed to accept it, but the Spurs firm, they never accepted it, they never forgot it. Hence the vicious rivalry you still see today between Spurs and West Ham. It really didn't take long at all for the show to get noticed. The original idea was for YouTube with consistent online releases, but I think the major success was the audience engagement. They would contact Phil and he would immediately reply.
Bloody hell, mate. I mean, you should see how viral this thing's gone, this video. Love the lingo and what you're about, going through a few of these comments right now. Oh, there's one here. You're a mug. We'll see who's a mug when I see you on the street, you little weasel.
We would be sitting down the pub and his phone would be buzzing, going crazy, and he would be counting his subscribers. Sometimes by the time we'd finished 3 beers, he would have gained 25,000 subs. People just seem to love the show.
He always says to me, Nan, we've gone viral. And at first I thought, who's viral? Another bloody girlfriend? But he said, no, it's when people see you on the internet. Then my sister Margaret phoned. She said she'd seen me on YouTube and I'd done a good job of the dusting, but Phil had done a terrible job of the windows, cheeky cow.
It was completely unknown territory for Phil, but he just embraced it. And the show kept growing and growing.
We would focus heavily on Phil and his nan's day-to-day life. It was just two genuine people facing genuine problems.
Every major company around the world has started in a garage somewhere. I'm talking Apple, Amazon, Disney, and now this little bad boy. And let me tell you, this ain't no sweatshop. There's no kids running around here sewing night gear, son, I'll tell you. What you do is, you get your badges, some of the holes ain't that quality. See that one there's a bit tight? Get your hole punch. Punch the hole, give her a little wiggle about. Here's one I made earlier. Look at that curve in that bad boy. That is ready to go on any little mug's shoulder. Leave that to set overnight. Reason why we use cans is for the curve. Tango, Pepsi, Coke. Personal choice. I like Tango because I'm a bit fruity, me, but... See, the trick is in all this, is that the clobber I wear cost me a fucking arm and a leg. But the people online don't know this is fake clobber, and they don't need to fucking know.
It's Stone Something and CP Island. All I know is he should be saving his money, not spending it on this gear, as he calls it. He says it's fashionable and everybody's wearing it, but I don't buy that, I'm sorry. It's just a way for the companies to make money out of the kids.
What does he tell you about the clothes?
Well, he says when he goes to football, he goes out, the badges keep falling off. I've got to keep sewing them on again. I don't see the point. You may as well leave them off and not pay all that money for them in the first place.
Obviously there was a revenue stream from all the online exposure, and Phil wasted no time in spending it. I don't think this was out of character for him. He always wanted to be famous. He was just enjoying it.
Right, gentlemen, been making some impulsive purchases recently, shall I say. Got a new one on here now, actually, bit cheeky. Here's one of my favourite ones. I've had a good few tear-ups in this one on the pavement. Full face coverage with her, gentlemen. You know what I say? No face, no case. This one, my favourites. Wear this down the boozer quite a lot, this one. It's even got my ICD badge on there. Get a close look on that. These blokes, top gentlemen. If you see them out and about, buy them a pint from me, yeah?
No, I was never jealous of the online success. I was just worried about him. I could see what he was getting himself into and he couldn't. His nan always had his best interests at heart. She'd been exposed to this completely alien world and didn't know the first thing about the internet. She was just thrown into the deep end.
In the world of football hooliganism, he was starting to catch people's attention, and not in a good way. They couldn't stand him.
Phil was different. He was an easy target for them. They didn't like seeing anything new. They didn't like seeing change, and they saw him as a threat. So he continued to call out anyone and everyone on the internet, and he was informed multiple times that he was catching the attention of some of London's top firms, and they didn't find the show or Phil particularly funny. They sent multiple warnings for him to stop, but he wouldn't.
Are you worried?
About what?
The negative attention that you've been receiving?
No, not to be honest with you, mate. I mean, I think what people don't understand about me is I'm not scared or bothered by anything, and people can do what they want and say what they want, and I'll be here and I'll be ready for them.
They saw him as a grass. He was putting the spotlight on hooliganism for the world to see. Hooligans don't want to be seen or heard. They want to have a scrap with a local firm, then they want to go home to the family and kick the ball about with the kids. In their opinion, he was making a mockery of football hooliganism, and his show was making them the laughing stock.
Honestly, couldn't give a toss what they think about me or the show, to be honest with you, mate. I mean, I'm just trying to live my life and do better for myself, and people like that don't want to see you do better for yourself.
The production company didn't give a monkeys. They had the conflict they were looking for, and the show was entertaining. I don't think he told his nan about the extent of the threats he was receiving or who was threatening him. And he was receiving threats from some pretty dangerous people.
Look at what the cow's done to my nan's house. Fucking state of it. She was petrified when them eggs at the window. Just what I need on a fucking Sunday morning. Nah, I didn't get a look at them, fella. As soon as fucking I come out in my boxers, they all scattered. People don't usually scatter when I'm in my boxers, especially the ladies. But I mean, them blokes did, especially when I was running fucking full steam at them. Little mugs, trashing that old lady's house. Wait till I get my fucking hands on them.
He knew it was down to the show, attracting the attention of the wrong people. Everyone did, but he didn't tell his nan. I think he just said it was like local vandals.
If you think target my nan's house is going to scare me, we're going to have to try harder than that, boys. Well done, trash an old lady's fucking house. How special must you feel? Bunch of top nutters, are ya? I'll be sure to leave a few extra wheelie bins and packs of eggs out for ya. Fucking school children. If you're going to do something, do it fucking properly.
I was concerned for Pauline, Phil's nan's safety. But he assured me it was just kids trolling and there was nothing to worry about.
The first time things actually became violent was when Phil was at the park walking his dog. For me, that was the first time I actually began to question myself. And I thought, could this job actually be dangerous?
Fucking hell. Go on, Alan, get in. No, I'm not. I just got jumped up the park by two lads. One of them smacked me clean in the eye. Where's Nan? I don't want her to see me like this.
Did they get you bad?
Yeah, there was two of them. One of them just come up to me, just threw a punch at me. Next thing you know, I've dropped one of them. The other geezer didn't want it one-on-one, so they've just scattered. Can't even walk the fucking dog without getting grief.
You know you've done it?
Well, I know I would have called it on, definitely. One of the lads told me he would have called it on.
And the next day, Phil said he wanted to record a video of his own, something a little bit different. So that's what we did.
I warned him not to make the video, but he wouldn't listen.
I didn't even know what he was going to say, and I certainly did not have a clue what he was going to do.
I'd like to say that I received your message, and I'd politely like to let you know what I think of your message. Here's what I think of your football club, and here's what I think of you as a person. Now you fucking leave me alone, you little muggy prick.
He only went and burnt a West Ham top with Baxter Cutler's name on the back of it. West Ham's top boy from back in the day.
Who's Baxter Cutler? Only one of the most notorious, infamous, conniving criminals of the late 80s and 90s.
The issue with Baxter Cutler is he wasn't just a football hooligan. I mean, hooliganism was his pastime. Leading the West Ham firm for 30 years wasn't even his main forte of criminal activity, believe it or not.
Well, it was organised crime, really. Man was a gangster, surrounded by family and a crew of thugs.
I've seen Baxter Cutler do serious harm to people, physical and emotional harm. He didn't give a shit who you were. I've seen people come back with toes and fingers missing. He ain't a pleasant man.
These blokes were gangsters, crooks, criminals from back in the day, and now they're operating in a completely different way.
Nasty blokes, the fucking lot of them.
There's nothing wrong with me at all. People who know me would tell you I'm a decent geezer. What can I tell you about football violence? I'd say it's for silly little boys. You should listen to their mothers when she tells them to come home with their tea. At the end of the day, I'm a family man. Yeah, I just like to look after my family. I mean, it just so happens that my family's bigger than most people's. If you upset anyone in my big happy family, I don't like it. Are you fucking turn this thing, is it on? Right. Right. I've just seen that video that prick has uploaded to the internet, yeah? Fucking burning a West Ham shirt with my name on the back. Right. Listen here, Phil, you little mug. So I've got a few demands and you're gonna fucking listen carefully. 1, I want you to cancel that stupid poxy show of yours. 2, I want you to stop embarrassing genuine football fans up and down this fucking country. And 3, you're gonna like this one, mate. I want a video apology within the next 24 hours or I'm gonna send round the fucking bailiffs and you'll be left with fucking soup for brains. I assume you don't want to end up like your uncle was. Right. You should consider yourself very fucking lucky because I don't give out warnings. You've been blessed. So next time you go to church with a little old nan, you better thank the fucking Lord upstairs. Yeah? Fucking cunt.
I do worry when he goes out because he's a big fella and he can take care of himself. But I always found, I mean, I'm of an age when there's always someone bigger and tougher than what you are.
Nah, I'm not having it. He can talk and threaten me all he wants. Thinks I'm scared of him and what he's meant to be. I mean, who does he think he is anyway? Mentioning my family like that, my nan, my uncle, anyone else would get filled in. Asking me to stop this show, asking for an apology. He can fucking think twice because I'll fight that little mug till my dying breath. Listen here, Baxter, you mug. You think your little scare tactic's gonna work on me? Well, you got another thing coming. I ain't scared of someone like you. And I'm not one of these little mugs or lapdogs that you've got running around for you already. So if you want to fight, I'll fight you. I'll fight you on the pavements. I'll fight you at the football ground. I won't surrender to you and I won't apologise. And if you ever fucking mention my nan or my uncle again, I'll fucking kick your head in, you little mug. Scared? I'm not scared of him. I mean, how can I be scared of a little mug like that? Mentioning my uncle's name, God bless his soul. Who the fuck does he think he is?
What are you going to do next?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know what I'm going to do next. The ball's in his court. But what I will be ready like I fucking always am. And there ain't a step that he's going to take that I ain't a step ahead of him. Fucking little weasel.
When I saw the video, I begged Phil to get the police involved. What was happening was illegal. He said if we got the police involved, it would just make it worse.
Well, that's it. Phil's gone off to the match. On match day, I usually make him egg and soldiers before he goes for his breakfast while he's upstairs, getting his fancy outfits on. I'm calling him to come and have the breakfast, and he's usually late coming down, and it's bloody cold time he gets here. Still, if he's happy, that's okay with me. Tottenham are playing Chelsea today. I do hope they win, because otherwise Phil will come home in a strop, and I really can't be having it.
Do you watch the games?
No, I don't watch the games, because it's not good for my heart. I do listen on the radio sometimes though when I'm working about or doing my ironing, but that's as far as it goes. I'm always like that with Tottenham. I'm all on, my nerves are all on edge when they're playing.
I think there has to be a certain admiration towards Phil's nan. I mean, she's a woman who's been through an unnatural amount of trauma. She still managed to have a positive outlook on things. Yeah, Pauline had to be one of the purest souls I've ever met in my life. You know, she just wanted everyone to be okay. She had a hard enough time, and I do think Phil, unintentionally, put her through a lot of shit.
Thank you all for joining us on this very special Sunday afternoon where North London's Tottenham Hotspur will take on West London's Chelsea. The final stage is set for this dramatic game of football, and I think we are in for a scintillating afternoon as two of London's most famous clubs go head to head. So make sure you stay tuned. We'll be here to provide you with all the coverage throughout the day.
So basically it was Tottenham's last game of the season and they had to win for the Champions League qualification to be pretty much nailed on. I think we got here at about 1 p.m. The game wasn't till 5, but you know, we always like to get here early. Phil was just around the corner by a lamppost finishing off a fag. And this white van pulls up and 5 blokes jump out, all wearing balaclavas, tooled up, and they just set to work on him. He actually manages to swing and catch one of them quite cleanly and drops them. Look, Phil can hit a punch, but there was 5 of them, and by the time I saw what was happening, it was basically too late. I mean, I ran over, caught one of them, but someone hit me around the side of the head and I went down. That's all I can really remember. I came to in the ambulance. Phil was in a bad way. It was almost like he was so full of adrenaline, he didn't really realise the damage that had been done to him. He was shouting and screaming, and he had blood streaming down his face.
Phil took a hell of a beating that day. I don't care how much friction there was between them two. Nobody deserves that.
The aftermath wasn't pleasant. His nan was heartbroken and she blamed herself for it.
Got a laceration and mild concussion to the forehead, a black eye, ruined my good looks. My nan's doing it already and I've heard enough of it already, to be honest with you, but there you go. Double fracture in the left arm. I mean, getting them Nelsons down the hatchet's going to be a bit of a task, but nothing a straw won't solve. And some muscle and ligament damage to the left knee.
Phil, you've got that film crew in there again. There's always trouble.
Yeah, I have.
When they're here. This is how you've ended up getting beaten up, isn't it? Because of them. It all started from
Look, at
there.
the end of the day, man, it's got nothing to do with that. I've been brought up my whole life by you and people around me to stand up to bullies, to stand up to these fat cats that sit at the top of the tree and look down on people like us. And I'm not having it. This Baxter clown thinks he can have one over on me just because I've got a few grazes and I'm hobbling around on crutches. He's got another thing coming, I tell you that.
It's more than a few grazes, and another thing, Phil, I've just about had enough. At my time of age, I can do without it, to tell you the truth. I just want a bit of peace and quiet. Sit at home doing my knitting, reading my book. Not have all this hassle and these blokes keep turning up with their cameras.
Yeah, it's true. I've achieved a lot in my lifetime. I built an empire. I came. I saw. I kicked a few fucking heads in. You know, nothing makes me more proud than leaving something behind that matters. You know, because people judge you on what you said and what you did when you was alive. A legacy. This is my legacy. My son, Malcolm Cutler. Whizzer, they call him. He's a whippet on the wing. Had a little stint at Spurs. Best said about that, the better. Then last year, got a call up from my beloved West Ham United, the under-20s. I'm sorry, lads, if this proud father bollocks is boring you, but I'm telling you, unless you've been there and you felt that passion, he'll have an England shot in one day, I tell you, mark my words.
I've been doing all right recently. Since I got the cast off, can walk on my ankle again, get out, get some fresh air in my lungs. But I've had a lot of time to think. You've got internet trolls, people online, I'm getting random phone calls and texts from people I don't even know now. It's getting beyond a joke. And if they think I'm going to stop the show, they've got another thing coming. This is what I live for.
Grassing, snitching, call it what you like. It's always been a big thing in football hooligan culture. It's seen as something you don't do. It's an agreement between two firms. If you go out on the concrete with another bloke, another punch-up, you're giving him your word you ain't going to grass him.
Some of the messages and tweets he was receiving were honestly sickening. I don't know how people can be so cruel like that, hiding their identity through the internet.
I mean, half these people wouldn't even show up, because my nan would give them a pasting around the front garden before I even got a chance to get my hands on them. It's not good. Saying they're going to have to keep her in overnight. So they're going to assess her in the morning, but just not fucking happy. It's not good news. Fucking. I'm not letting her eat that shit up there. Have you seen hospital food? So I've made her a favourite, corned beef sandwiches, and got her a pack of malted milks. I don't give a fuck if they don't let me in with it or not. I'll sneak it in there. I mean, visiting hours are from 9 till 12. So I'm going to get up there early doors, make sure she's all right.
He would always look for the most positive outcome, but I think sometimes there has to be a place for realism.
I know she'll be all right. She told me she would be, and she's a fighter like me. We've always had fight in my family. But I spoke to the doctors this morning, and they said, touch wood, week or so she should be out, and we just got to stay positive.
He was almost erratic. I don't think he really knew what to do, and he'd never experienced anything like this. He just threw himself into the show and trying to get it right.
There was denial. Sadly, there's no other way to put it. I just don't think he wanted the audience to know how bad it really was.
He was throwing himself into the filming, yeah. But there were subtle changes in his behaviour, and I don't blame him for that. People deal with things differently, and I can't imagine what he must have been going through.
I don't know what you want me to do, lads, because I'm not going up there, and we're not filming up there. So you're going to have to find some other way to get your footage. Otherwise, if I just go down there, I'm going to get jumped again. I mean, who likes getting their head kicked in? She's my best friend as well, not just my nan. And it's hard for me to compute. It really hasn't sunk in.
We captured an awful lot of his thoughts and how he was feeling.
He was dealing with some serious shit. And when he started talking about his actual feelings, the production company didn't want to know.
I keep like having these dark thoughts recently, you know? And they go round and round in my head, like eating me up bit by bit. I mean, sometimes I lay there in bed at night and I'll switch everything off. I'll put my book down or I'll turn the telly off. And even though my body's tired and my mind's tired, they just keep going round in my head. I feel like everything in my life is just going to go wrong and they're just eating me up. Sometimes I think about Nan, and sometimes I think about crazy stuff, like doing bad things or hurting people, or bad things I've done in the past, or that I regret, and they just spiral out of control. By the time my head's actually hitting the pillow of an evening or a morning, half the night's gone. And I just feel so lost. I'm just sick of contemplating all this stuff. It's just eating me up, the person that I once was. Breaking me down bit by bit. It's only going to get to the point where I'm like a ticking time bomb and something's going to go wrong. But I guess I'll be alright in the long run. I think I've been bumped on the head too many times, you know.
He was talking about things that should have been said to a therapist, not a camera crew. And yeah, I think it was inhumane to film him the way they did. I think Phil's nan had the right idea about them. You know, she could read them like a book. She saw straight through them, and she knew that once he'd been attacked, she wanted nothing to do with him.
Listen here, Phil, you mug. I've seen that little video you uploaded the other day in the hospital, and the way you've been prancing around on the camera since. Oh, you're proper lapping it up, aren't you? Well, I wanted to educate you on the etiquette of not being a fucking grass in my world. You see, Phil, if you take a beating and lose, like you did, then there won't be any traces of evidence reported to the police. But recently I'm getting the sense that my name is very close to leaving your gob on camera. If you go as so far as to do that, then it won't be your well-being that you have to worry about, my friend. And I ain't gonna mince my words here, so you better fucking listen carefully. I will come for your loved ones, your nearest and dearest. I'll make their lives live in hell. I've heard your nan's not doing too well either. I might have to go and drop her some flowers. Oh, I'm sure she'd enjoy a visit from me at the hospital. Anyway, that's all for now, big man. Ta-ta.
The more I think about it, I think is there more I could have done to prevent it. Should have protected her better. Now she's up there more vulnerable than ever. And these doctors, they just speak in fucking riddles. One day she's coming out, next minute it's a week. I mean, which fucking one is it?
We had no idea he'd received a voicemail from Baxter. During that period, he'd spent, what, 95% of his time at the hospital? The only time he'd ever come home would be to get food and clothes for him and his nan.
None of us knew what was going to happen. I could tell he was just struggling badly.
I mean, I should be protecting her. It's my job to protect her and look after her. She's done the stages of looking after me in her life, so now it's my turn to take care of her. But at the minute, I can't control what's going on. And when I can't control what's going on, I feel like a caged animal.
No matter how hard Phil tried to protect his nan from Baxter, her physical health was just rapidly deteriorating.
I'd rather take on Millwall, Chelsea and West Ham all at the same fucking time than have this feeling inside my stomach right about now.
Oh, it's such an awful time. And everyone obviously just praying the worst wouldn't happen. I mean, we adored Phil's nan. I think everybody did. And when the public found out she'd fallen ill, the reaction was unbelievable. We received cards, messages, even donations.
I don't give a flying fuck what they send her. They can send as many flowers, sympathy cards as they like. I don't want their sympathy, and neither does she. And to be honest with you, she's still really upset about how I was treated when I got assaulted. So they could take their sympathy, their cards and their flowers and stick it up their fucking arse.
The evening of the operation, where did we go? I took him down the pub. I knew I had to get him out of the house, and I knew I had to get him away from those cameras. There was no way I was letting that lot be there when his nan died. They would have recorded every last second of it and milked the moment dry. So I took him down the pub, and I think it took his mind off it the best it could. You know, we talked and we drank, and that's all we could do, really.
What do you mean Baxter's been nicked? Fuck's sake, you're having me on, ain't ya? Well, the finger's automatically going to point at me. I'm here minding my own fucking business, and some other fuckers put their nose in it and decided to pick the phone up to the old Bill. Yeah, and he's going to think I did it. He's going to think I'm the fucking grass. We need to find out who the fuck called this on and called the old Bill. Listen, I've got to make some fucking calls. I'm gone. Fuck's sake.
I couldn't let Baxter get away with what he did. Obviously, I'm going to report that person. If I knew they committed a crime, who wouldn't?
His mate wasn't protecting Phil. People forgot. His mate also got attacked. He was looking for a payout. He wasn't a proper football hooligan. He didn't know the code.
It wasn't anything to do with Phil. People forget that I was the victim of a violent assault and it needed to be reported. And I still don't have any regrets about that. It was something that needed to be done. Baxter thought he was above the law, and what were we supposed to do? Live in fear for the rest of our lives?
Ted. Nah, Ted, nah. No, I'm not fucking listening. I told you the situation was fucking sorted. It was all under control. There's a reason why I didn't retaliate to him. There's a fucking reason. And I told you not to go to the police, not to ring the old bill. And what do you fucking do? You ring the old nah. He was gonna think it was me though, not you. You're all right. Finger's automatically gonna point at fucking me. Yeah, no, that's not the point. No, I'm not here. I'm going to. You fuck me right off. I've had enough. Fuck off.
I never knew about the voicemail that Baxter sent to Phil. He did tell me not to go to the police, but I didn't know about the voicemail.
We were unable to make a tangible link between the assault on Phil and Baxter. The men who'd done it were wearing balaclavas. Phil wouldn't tell us anything. He wouldn't even provide a statement, so we couldn't link Baxter to the assault.
The police were fucking useless at this point.
Right, lads, make sure you get that camera there. You see that one that, yeah, just there. I want the whole driveway covering and that garage door there. And then, yeah, that way. And then the next camera you put up on the front, fella. Next camera you put up on the front up here. I want it up on the left, right? Yeah. And then when we do the cameras round the back, can we make sure we cover the back fence as well? I need that whole back fence covered. And stick a light up for me as well. Listen, I'm not scared, but it's better to be prepared than not prepared. And you never know what's coming your way, so you've got to box smart. You've got to think smart about these things. Do you need a hand with anything there, mate? Or it's all good, yeah?
I think at that point we were so heavily involved in the situation that we were actually filming to provide potential evidence for crimes taking place rather than for the documentary itself. I took it upon myself that it was my job to protect Phil, particularly from the actions of certain other people. And it was both mine and Phil's decision that from that moment on, we documented everything that happened.
None of the footage they shot protected Phil. They were there to film the aftermath of it every single time. I'm not having this self-righteous bullshit as if they were trying to do something morally right.
I told him not to call the police, not to ring the old bell and get them involved. And what does he do? He calls the police and gets them involved. But now he's put a load of shit onto my plate that I'm going to have to fucking deal with.
People that weren't involved in the world of hooliganism wouldn't understand it. You never grass on anyone.
Is this some sort of fucking joke? 3 a.m. 3 a.m. in the fucking morning he's crept into my house and took my fucking dog. Does he know who he's fucking with? Does he know what I've got in the boot of this car? Let alone the duct tape and fucking rope. It's gonna go fucking missing. And when I get my hands on him, I'm gonna cave his fucking skull in.
I think there was complete radio silence from his mate Ted at this point, and in my opinion, he was really putting Phil up against it.
No, I'm not having that, because it wasn't as black and white as that. I was trying to help Phil, but he wasn't getting back in contact with me. And once I heard the news about his dog, I just felt so much guilt. You know, I thought about it over and over in my head. I'm not a kind of person who can just go and speak to a gangster, but, you know, the police weren't doing anything. So that was my plan. Confront Baxter myself and tell him that I was the one who went to the police and not Phil. I was absolutely shitting myself. I was just questioning everything I'd done in my life to lead me to that moment. Asking myself how and where did it all go wrong. I pride myself on being a clean-nosed, honest person, and now I've unintentionally got myself involved in this shit. About to enter the property of a notorious lunatic. I mean, you honestly couldn't make it up. So there I was, 10 yards from the house, just constantly questioning my decision. And, you know, I walk up the drive and slowly the door opens.
Fuck you.
And there he is.
Yeah, well, you better start talking, son. You're gonna be fucking lot of trouble.
Honestly, at that moment, my heart There was just something stuck in my throat. I can still feel the awkward tension. Like he was just standing there, staring at me, and I could not talk. I hesitantly said to him that I was here to talk about Phil. I remember he paused for a second, and then this big, devilish grin just washed over his face. He didn't know who I was, but he invited me into his house, and he was ready to talk business. He never became hostile to me during the time I spent with him. Baxter didn't seem to acknowledge anything about the fact that I'd gone to the police and not Phil. His attention was fully focused on Phil. I pleaded with him to leave Phil alone, but he said that even if he wanted to reverse what was about to happen, he couldn't. And it was at that point I knew what he had done.
Oh, so that was the single worst filming day of the entirety of the project, or even ever. Yeah, that was probably the worst filming day of my entire career, actually. So we'd arrived back at Phil's nan's house at lunchtime to continue filming. Phil had gone upstairs to get changed, and so I went into the kitchen to make a cup of tea, and I remember it so vividly. There at the sink there's a big open window that looked out onto the garden, and as you looked out, there hanging by a bit of rope was Phil's little dog.
Shut the fucking door. Shut the fucking door. Don't let him in, okay? Someone get out there and distract him. Don't let him in. And you, get out there and cut that down.
Tony, Tony, can you hear me?
Don't let him in.
I didn't want Phil to see the dog like that. I couldn't let that happen. It would have broken him. And so we got the dog cut down, and I got him to cut the cameras as well because I didn't want to record that reaction.
I still struggle to comprehend how they filmed that whole situation. It honestly blows my mind.
Really? Is that what he said? Well, there's some people might say that dog might still be alive if it weren't for him.
We like documentaries, don't we?
I'd never seen a man so broken by a situation. You could see he just had enough. Emotionally, he was gone. I'd never seen him this irate before. I didn't have a clue what he was going to do. So I headed off into the kitchen to get a glass of water, and the next thing I heard the door slam. He'd ran down a path, jumped in his car, and he'd sped off.
He was around the wrong people at the time. How were they supposed to know how to calm him down? If he'd have been around family and friends, he possibly wouldn't have run off.
Days went by and nobody heard a thing. I mean, the show was clearly dying, but at this point it really was on its last legs, and me and the crew were actually starting to fear for our own safety. Everything was getting a little bit close to home.
Life during this period was just strange. It felt like we weren't living in reality. You know, all of the rules and ethics that you follow in the hope that this kind of thing doesn't ever happen to you. We didn't want to be involved in this, and there it was right on our doorstep, encroaching. Nobody felt safe during this time. I was just constantly asking myself, how did it come to this? And I think in a way, we did feel abandoned by Phil.
There had been no social media activity on his personal accounts, no updates, nothing.
Obviously, as the police, we have ways to track and trace a missing person, so it wasn't long before we found out that Phil was okay. He hadn't harmed himself, he hadn't done any harm to anyone else, but once you find a missing person, you can't force them to go back to their friends and family. That's their decision at the end of the day.
He hadn't hurt himself and nobody had hurt him, so to find out that he was okay and he could have been there for me when things took a turn for the worse, that was tough. You know, he could have been there, and he wasn't.
And a display of each country's rapidly developing youth. There are some scintillating young starlets coming through the ranks on both sides, and there isn't a bigger stage than this for them to prove themselves. When we come back after this short break, we will be putting the spotlight on young debutant Malcolm Cutler. Having risen through the ranks at West Ham, he has been awarded with his debut tonight, and we'll be hearing from him later.
I've always been focused on football, no matter what club I play at really. I just try and keep my head in the game and not get distracted by any outside noise or anything. Hi, my name is Malcolm Cutler. I'm 20 years old. I'm originally from London, but I've had to move all around the country, so my accent may have changed quite a bit. So I first got scouted by QPR under 8s, which I then went to Crystal Palace Youth and then to Spurs, which I got loaned out for quite a bit. And now I'm playing at West Ham. But yeah, this is the grassroots club where it all started. Yeah, I think playing for various clubs over the country has helped refine me into the player I am today, and just really hope that I can keep improving that way. But yeah, it was a great honour to get called up by the under-21s international team. I do believe I'm able to get into the first team, so I'm looking forward to that. I just really want to show everyone what I can do.
When I feel stressed or anxious, I work out or train. It clears my head and it helps with my mental health. I was very anxious at this point, I think everyone was, and I started wearing a body camera, particularly after I visited Baxter's house. Anyway, on this particular day I was out running in the local park. Sorry, this is, I haven't really spoken about this very much since it happened. So I was in the local park doing laps, and there's this guy running ahead of me, this sort of big, scruffy looking bloke in a full grey tracksuit. As I go to pass him, he hits me right between my eyes, shatters my nose and completely knocks me out. I was unconscious. I regained consciousness in the boot of a car. Obviously I didn't know where I was, I thought I was dead. I could barely breathe through my nose and I could feel the wetness of my own blood everywhere. The car was shaking violently back and forth and I could hear like voices in the front. Eventually the car came to a halt and they opened the boot. The light sort of blinded me and one of them pinned me down so I couldn't move and the other one grabbed me by the hand. The next thing I feel is the cold metal of a blade digging into my finger. Blood ran all the way down my arm and I screamed relentlessly. He sawed clean through the bone and just hacked the whole of my finger off. You know, at that point I wanted to die. You know, it would have been much easier than to deal with the pain. I was completely delusional at this point. They tossed me out of the boot and onto the ground. They told me I was in my local park, you know, the one I'd grown up in and used all my life, but I didn't recognise it. They threw me a towel and told me that the hospital was 2 minutes down the road and that I should go and get myself patched up. And at that point, I think survival instinct just kicked in. My brain wasn't really functioning, but clearly my legs were because I made it there somehow. But you know, obviously I don't remember it. Apparently, I just got to the reception and collapsed.
When you see everything in front of your very eyes getting dismantled for reasons you still don't understand till this very day, it makes you think back to certain moments and situations and events and makes you think, could you have done things differently? And since the beginning of the show, I've had this constant appearance and persona and desire and want to make everyone proud around me, you know, like Nan, Ted, family, friends, you know, to uphold this character that I've portrayed to everyone. And for an individual, when you think outside the box, it's takes a lot of mental willpower, you know, to carry that sort of, I've got to look like this, or I've got to sound like that, or I've got to do this, and it takes a lot of mental struggle to carry that. And then you start, you know, building this defense mechanism that you've self-created because you've tried to carry this persona for so long that you then start boxing yourself in. It's like mental fucking engagement. And then you start getting the pressure from family members, the pressure from trolls, the pressure from people you don't even fucking know. And you're like a kettle, like waiting to boil over. And you get to a certain point and you think, at what cost? At what cost does all this cause me? Destroying myself and the things I've got around me to carry this image. And all the people I know and all the people you know have been affected by this beef. And people that you don't even know and people I don't even know have been wrapped up in this sick little fucking circle of games that we've been playing. To the point where, it's just gone too fucking far. And yes, Baxter, I'm speaking about you fucking little. It's all gone too far. I'm at the fucking point now where I'm a man that has nothing to lose. And a man that has nothing to lose is a dangerous fucking person. Do you hear me? The line that you don't cross, you can't even see anymore. Do you understand what I'm fucking saying? It's all gone too far. And I'm willing to sacrifice the last bit of breath and the last step I can take on this earth to take you fucking with me. Because I'll carry on. I've got nothing to fucking lose. But what about you? What about this, top man persona that you've got going on? Because right about now, I ain't got no more weight to fucking carry. Shit is done. I'm snapped. I'm a train derailed. I'm fucking gone. This is enough. I've had it. I'm fucking outie.
I didn't see that video until after I was attacked. In fact, I didn't know anything about the events that happened following my assault. Prior to that, I was having reconstructive surgery to the nervous system in my hand, but look, I was out like a light.
It was here in the early hours of Tuesday morning, having recently returned from a successful European tour.
Malcolm Cutler's residential home in Bedfordshire was breached by a masked attacker.
Rising England under-21s football star Malcolm Cutler was the victim of a violent home invasion. Malcolm has sustained catastrophic injuries to both of his legs and is currently in a critical but stable condition in hospital.
Any reasoning or motive behind the violent attack are still unknown, and the police are conducting a widespread investigation.
Malcolm Cutler, a fine example of a model sports professional to many. The future of his playing career now looks very uncertain. However, fans of the England starlet have been showing their utmost admiration and support for the young man. The local police force have now asked for anyone in the local area that could have potentially witnessed suspicious activity during this time to come forward. And whilst the case is being built, fans, family members and friends can only hope that Malcolm Cutler successfully recovers from this traumatic event.
Well, hearing that news, what are you supposed to do with that information? How are you meant to compute that? I certainly couldn't at the time.
For me, he did it 100%. I don't blame him for what he did. The man was backed into a corner with nowhere to go. Abandoned by the law, he took matters into his own hands.
I will always be of the opinion that Phil is innocent until proven guilty. Ever since Alan was murdered, he removed himself from the situation and he didn't look back. Baxter was involved with all sorts of awful people. It could have been any one of those common thugs.
When I came to, I was in the operating theatre, and then came the traumatic flashbacks of me having my finger hacked off. So yeah, it was rough. Really, really rough. Once the clock hit 9 AM though, Phil walked in. I remember it vividly. He just looked exhausted and weathered, but he had this look on his face that I'll never forget. It was just a look of care and a concern for me. I think sometimes blokes just need to chat to their best mate. Phil just needed to talk, and I could see that he was still broken. So that's what we did. We talked as if we were chatting down the pub or playing out as kids. And I think he just wanted to pretend that everything was back to normal and that his nan was okay and there were no cameras. So that's what we did. We talked.
It became a national inquiry. Because of Malcolm Cutler's status, it attracted a lot of attention from the general public.
Would Baxter ever have stopped hurting people and destroying people's lives if Phil didn't do what he did?
I think the public were presented with a very one-sided story. But those people who are close to Phil, those people who really know him, they know the horrific stuff that Baxter put him through.
Everyone was blaming Phil. He was enemy of the state, but the thing is, nobody knew where he was or where he went.
Can you confirm that this is you on the video recording I've just played?
No comment.
Can you confirm or deny that you were involved in the assault of one Philip Day on Tottenham High Road during May 2017?
No comment.
Can you confirm that the selection of images I have here are of you and several of your associates?
No comment.
Thank you, Mr. Cutler. I will now play another video recording we have here, and then I'll be asking some further questions.
I knew what kind of situation I was walking into when I went to Baxter's house, so there was no way I wasn't recording it. I mean, the police did nothing to me the first time, so I wasn't taking any chances. They said there wasn't enough evidence the first time round, so I presented them with undeniable facts.
But here's the thing, Baxter don't work alone. He's got people out there doing his dirty work for him.
I've heard he's still got men out there looking for Phil, but who knows? I'm staying well out of it this time.
Look, I hated Baxter as much as the next person, but he was dragged into all of this as well. And I don't think I can finish his interview without giving my 2 cents about what the real issue was. And for me, it's the camera crew. It all starts and ends with the camera crew. That was the be-all and end-all of everything. They were the match that started the fire.
I think it just comes with the nature of the industry. I get blamed all the time for things that ain't my fault. It's just part of the job. I'm used to it. It's one of the downsides of making documentaries.
Phil was their show pony, and they led him into deep water and watched him drown. They manipulated and tore our lives apart for their own monetary gain. I mean, look at where it left the people involved. Ruined our fucking lives.
Well, he can say what he likes, but I refuse to go into any detail on his opinions on here. Morally, I don't think it's the right place for it.
Whenever I visit Tottenham, I think of Phil. I think of how much he loved the place, how much happiness it brought him. You know, it was our common ground, and no one can take that away from us. That's why it's more than a game of football to me, and I'm sure it's more than just a game of football to a lot of people. Well, in fact, I know it is. From remembering the first time your dad took you, you know, walking up the gangway, seeing the pitch for the first time, to bringing loved ones who aren't around anymore, you know, your nan or your granddad, and maybe you taking your little brother or sister, and then eventually bringing kids of your own. You know, we all have those memories, and they're all different. But for me, it's about my best mate. You know, it's about Phil. So when I take that train into Tottenham on a match day, grab a pint in the Beehive, place that bet, buy that programme, I'm thinking about more than just a game of football.
I think the whole experience that we went through was pretty unique. I don't think there's many people who could say they experienced what we went through, and that's the beauty of filmmaking. That's why I love it so much. If you were to ask me if I would go back in time and do it all over again, then yeah. But if you were to ask me if I would do it again now, then no, I wouldn't. I think once was enough. I think in any lifetime, you only need to experience something once. And I think everybody involved in that project would probably agree.
I think I've learnt that not all situations can be fixed with the same solution. And Sometimes the obvious solution isn't always the right one. Unfortunately, I've had to learn that the hard way. You only make the same mistake once, and believe me, I have learned from that mistake. I will take the secrets that were told to me to my grave. Maybe he did or didn't tell me what he had done or where he was going. But it's not my place to disclose that information to anybody.